Good morning, everyone. This is Julie McDonald with Microcom Technologies, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's webinar with Fanvil. Today's host is Tommy Lee, and he is their Vice President of Sales in North America, and he'll be presenting today. If anyone has any questions, please submit them in the question box, and Tommy will answer them at the end of today's presentation. Tommy, thank you so much for being with us today. We greatly appreciate your time. I am finished for now. Please go ahead and take it on over.
Thank you very much for the warm introduction, Julie. Appreciate your time, everybody, and thank you for setting aside a little bit of a moment. I have a brief presentation that I kind of want to go over about Fanvil and what we want to do, how we differentiate ourselves. One of the new things I'm going to do on this presentation is I'm also going to introduce a cloud service management system, which I think is a tool that we provide for free to our partners out there that will totally increase your productivity. Now, of course, it's going to be a little bit of a learning tool, but what I'm going to intend to do is to give you a quick overview in the beginning, and I'm going to try to do a walkthrough to kind of give you a really good idea on some of the things that you might go over when you go ahead and do these things. So these are the things I'm going to try to encapsulate in a short, brief amount of time. So this is sort of a Reader's Digest, and it gives you a good idea on how to really deploy, voice and perhaps video solutions, at least SIP-based throughout the marketplace. Now, for those who aren't familiar with Fanvil, let me just set aside one slide to give you an idea about the solutions that we bring to the marketplace. Fanvil is a designer of SIP endpoints, and these you see down here. And these devices really could be divided into 4 separate categories. The most popular device that we have is our SIP desk phones, and SIP desk phones can be brought into 2 different series. One is the X series, which is focused on business applications. This is where you take a desk phone and you put it on your desk at work or the dental office, etc. And we have a huge variety, and I'll get not into all the different details, but how we differentiate ourselves against our competition. And second to that, we also have our H series phone, which is a segment of phones that we set aside that address specifically the hospitality market. And the hospitality market is really a market that still calls out for, an endpoint in each and every room to configure a lot of things. So when you're going through these upgrades, these are SIP endpoints that we could provide that might match that requirement. Outside of the SIP desk phones, we also have SIP door access units. Again, these are all SIP endpoints. Once you understand how to deploy these SIP desk phones, then moving over to the door access units, it's the same GUI. It's really all of the same SIP registration devices, but with just a few different capabilities. Like in the door access units, we have outdoor units here that allow people or providers to provide solutions, giving people RFID key code accesses to enter into their building. You have units that have video and units that don't have video. Units that actually fit indoors, as well as industrial units that's designed to handle high humidity, moisture, or even freezing cold weather. So it really depends on what you want to do. In addition to outdoors, we also have a whole series of indoor units. So not only do you want to have a phone hanging on the inside, but there are aesthetically pleasing indoor units that you can mount on your desk or put on a wall that enables people to be able to see who's at the desk, to see whether or not it's a UPS or a FedEx person at their gate, and you could just do a simple push of a button and to open up the gate to allow them to come in and have access. Going beyond those door units, we also have SIP intercom. SIP intercom is a little bit more simple, where you have typically 1 or 2 button accesses to give a dedicated access to either someone in the control tower, or the receptionist, or what have you, so that you can get, or even to security, depending on what type of project you do. And in here, we have the same environmental requirements that we meet both industrial as well as ruggedized environments to meet whatever topics that projects that you have. SIP public address is another popular gateway that we provide. We have a gateway called either the PA2 or PA3 that enables all our providers and integrators to be able to convert any analog communication point into SIP. Here's an example. If you're converting a business office from analog to digital or to SIP, what do you do with the elevators? You have elevators that actually operate on an analog interface. With one of these gateways, you can convert that analog interface into SIP, where if you give it a particular extension, you could actually have that dial, say the front desk person, or the front desk person can dial back in to see what's going on in the elevator through a SIP interface. And this is a very popular device that we have. Another differentiating feature is that you can couple all of these endpoints into one cloud-based management system. Fanvil has always issued a management system to all of our partners, and we did it free of charge. But in addition to doing the download and requiring our partners to load it on a separate server, we've introduced a cloud-based system now, giving you the ability to bypass the hardware requirements, and you can actually go and manage different organizations, locations, and departments. And I intend to go through a quick walkthrough at the end of this slide set to give you an idea on how to go ahead and put those things together. And when you couple all these things, coupled with whatever local or cloud-based PBX provider, these are all the different video and voice particular communications that we provide to you. Now let's just focus in on what we have as the highest, most popular units that sold throughout North America. A lot of our people out there, we like to keep things very simple. So instead of providing a different SKU, looking at, oh, this SKU handles GIGI, another SKU handles PoE, a different SKU handles GIGI and PoE, we decided to really baseline our most popular units that are sold throughout North America across 4 separate SKUs. And in these 4 separate SKUs, they contain all the things you need: GIGI, color, PoE, Opus codec for low-end requirements, SIP BLF keys, all provided under one roof. In fact, and when you look at these units, it spans everywhere from the X3U, looking at the low-end base requirements, moving up to the X4U, where we begin to add different side keys. Now, in addition to these side keys, there's also a button underneath it that gives you separate windows within that side key. If you need more buttons, then you can graduate up to the X6U. And the X6U, the great thing about this is that it gives you 3 levels of buttons that you have access to in addition to multiple windows. Very often, this might appease a particular receptionist desk or whatever, because what we don't have in these units are expansion keys. And there's a reason why we did that, because we went with a different design route, and I'm going to tell you the reason why. On the X5 and 6U, we actually integrated Bluetooth integration into these phones, which means that you don't have to go out and spend an additional $30 for a Bluetooth dongle, put it in, and worry about another piece of hardware that might work or might not work, depending on what firmware version you have, etc. They're already integrated into the phone themselves. Now let's go into a little bit of differentiators. Now, in differentiation, we separate really our BLF keys with our SIP account keys that are pasted on the left-hand side. This is common throughout all our XU series. What are the advantages of it? Because with this type of architecture, you can actually load a lot of part keys and SIP account keys to the left side of the screen, which allows the end user to be able to go and really work with multiple lines or multiple part keys on the left, while not disturbing any of the predefined BLF keys that are on the side. Very often, a lot of other solutions may merge the two, so the more part keys you put, the actual less BLF keys you actually have. And what we do is we actually have a separate window here, which gives you several different windows of this put together. That's one differentiator. Another differentiator is that we also support all of our phones with a 2-year warranty, which is really double of a lot of the warranty that is provided to the industry, to make sure that we warrant all of our phones to our specification when we pump it out there. And beyond that, we also have custom branding. Now, the minimum custom branding requirement we have is typically around 200 units per model. So if you have the capability of ordering 200 units per model, then we can have discussions about putting your name up on here, because we have neutral phones that are capable of being able to put in your own logo versus the Fanvil logo, if that's something that you want to put out as well. And of course, local support. I'm here based in the States as well. And in addition to myself, there's also an SE that's available on the East Coast time from the manufacturer that is more than capable of providing you that technical assistance to sort of bridge the gap and understanding those things that you don't know moving forward. Okay. Now let's talk about the specialized IP phones beyond the XU series. Some people might need an extra large phone. In the extra large phones, we have the X7 series, which is here. This is our touchscreen phone, but we realize that touchscreens are also very, very subjective. You either love it or you hate it. So as a result, we built two phones. One of them is the X7. The smaller one is the X7C, of which we lessen the size of the screen and put buttons instead of the actual, touch screens on the screen itself. But it's the same exact phone that contains all the features of our X6U and above, and providing you with all these things. The unique design for Fanvil is really the X210. We're probably one of the first manufacturers to integrate sidecars as well as the phone onto one motherboard. Many people who provide solutions out in the marketplace are used to having a high-end desk phone coupled with another sidecar, or maybe coupled with two sidecars, of which there's more connections, more compatibility issues between the two, which could really take you down the bad rabbit hole. What we do is integrated all these designs into one motherboard and made it one phone, so that what we've done is put two sidecars on the side of one motherboard. We call it the X210. And on the bottom here, there's actually 3 separate windows, giving you a total of 106 keys that people have access to up here, and they can manage all of their SIP devices up here separately as well. And it has the integrated Bluetooth and all of the specific features I talked about on the XU series moving forward. Beyond the X210, we also have the hospitality phones. Again, I want to show you that we support different colors, both black and white. And another differentiator here is that we're one of the phones that put out a color screen. For those that are already in the hospitality market, everybody's used to working with those customized templates. Well, there's another way around it. We actually have one with a color display that allows you to put your own hotel logo on the display itself, so that the phone is constant and you could download through our management system any particular phone that you want and add it on, so that you can control what type of speed dial key labels you want, etc., moving forward. And then coupling that, we have a narrow band key phone here. This is very reminiscent back in the early 70s, where you used to have a narrow phone that could support 2 SIP lines. It works great in a hotel bathroom environment where you can actually expand and do those narrow real estate requirement type of things. And you can have it at home because there's no more room on the desk, and you can have a little narrow band 2 SIP line phone that you want to have on the side of your phone. Either way, we find many different applications that meet that. Last but not least, we also have the PA2. This is just a quick interface which allows you to sort of take basically a core SIP device, a core SIP gateway, and then instead of having the audio go to either a handset or a speakerphone, you could put your own speaker here, which one could be a passive speaker here, or a ceiling speaker here, or perhaps a third-party amplifier where you can actually hook this into a classic Bogan or a Viking amplifier, so that what this device will do is you assign it an extension, say to give it extension 100, it'll do an auto amp to 100 and drive your audio throughout whatever PA systems you have out there. Or it could really work on sensors. You could have a button that you can control logic and do switches where it can actually operate and drive alarm clocks and have relays that you can open up mag locks and everything like that to really support any of the system device that you might have. So you might say, wow, where do I get all those additional things? We have an actual SIP kit that's coupled with the PA2 that gives you an extra camera, an extra switch, a speaker, as well as a button that allows you to retrofit whatever analog device to make it work with your SIP interface, giving you a common interface here that allows you to hook these things into to convert any analog interface into SIP. Last but not least is our I series, what we call our intercom series. What I want to show here is that we have a plethora of devices. This is just a small snapshot. We have far more SKUs that will give you different variances depending on what you want. But my communication here is that we support indoor, industrial, as well as outdoor ruggedized environment, those that contain audio video requirements, as well as those that just require audio, so that you don't have to spend an extra dollar providing and purchasing solutions that you don't necessarily have to, giving you the most optimal device to meet your specific project requirements. Now let's look into the device management. Now this is that central management system where we can use to sort of set up your organization, device and resource management. You can set up, deploying firmware to alarm systems. But once you get it set up the first time, you could then all of a sudden take that template and begin deploying it on 1 or 2 separate phones. What I find most providers do is that they focus in on 1 or 2 SKUs that they want to use our phones in. And once they develop one template, and then they're ready to set to go ahead and deploy 1 versus 1,000 phones if they wanted to do it, all with a click of a button in a central location. And I want to kind of give you a quick idea on what's involved in doing that. The first idea is really organizing your management system, because every service provider has a different model that they work with. Some go ahead and purchase a standard lot of phones from Microcom, and they purchase it, they put it inside their system, and they manually configure it, and they may particularly send it out to a third-party integration rep or their own representation staff to enable for field deployment. Either way, you can go ahead and manage your organization or separate organizations, and you can individually manage each different site under each organization. I'm going to show you that through a walkthrough later on. Underneath the organization is site management. Within the organization, you might have things like the HR department, the marketing department, the sales department, or the warehouse. All of these things are different departments that could be managed separately, and you can divide up under the organization, which is managed discretely, to each of these different departments, so that you can manage the sites and going through all of these things and have it go through, and then you could you could just micromanage one phone, an entire department of phones, or all of the phones under the same organization. And last but not least, we have device management module. So this is the central hub. Now that you know how to organize your organization, how do you manage all these devices? And what you can do is when you import these things, you can scan all of these MAC addresses into a matrix where you can import it through an Excel file, or you can import just a single device, have it show up on the FDM CSCS, and then you could automatically deploy your standardized template into these devices and push these devices on the specific organization, site, or a specific MAC address, depending on how you want to go ahead and deploy that. So let's kind of go through a quick walkthrough, and this is the last piece I want to do. So I'm going to try to, in essence, manage how to go ahead and do that. This is in essence a logon screen, and I'm going to show you how you get access to this logon screen moving forward. So I'll go ahead and log in to our device management system, and the first thing that comes up is what we call the dashboard. This dashboard will give you a quick view about the different organizations here, right? So you can have default. Now keep in mind that default is the default organization. This is actually your organization. So if you happen to be an organization marked as Julie McDonald Corp., this could be, you could rename this as Julie McDonald Corp. And then define other organizations that you've also deployed phones to as well. And you can actually organize these different things by going to the upper left-hand corner and really defining which organization you want to concentrate on. So let's look at one organization and just dig a bit deeper. And here you can actually define how many devices are online, offline, and you can see where the registrations are in these devices moving forward. And you can work in all of these things as well. So let's look at how do you go ahead and add on an organization, okay? That's the first device. So let's go over to system and we'll go to user interface. This is something that you can set up where you can define roles. If you happen to be a service provider, you have different account managers and roles that manages different regions or different accounts. You can go ahead and click on roles and actually define whether it's an admin or a user, or you can click the add device here and you can assign privileges that give that person the ability to add, subtract, delete, update configuration files, and do whatever they want to do on a specific role, and they can manage whatever organization is possible. So if you want to add an organization beyond myself here, you could click on the org and then you can add an organization here. I just did some test accounts, which shows your organization B and C. I'm the account manager for these. These are just nothing but test accounts. So if I were to add something on, you can really define something here as, say, McDonald or something like that. And here, and just define who's the assigned user and give a slight description. And they will be defined as a separate organization, which would be managed under all of these separate organization groups up here with a high-level bird's eye view on their dashboard capability right here. So that's how you do it. And then beyond that, you also have site management as well beyond the system. So you can have let me see, system log, channel. Okay, you can add a sub company here, of which you can also add sub companies, which are different sites, where you can add a sub company here, and you can create a sub channel account if you want to. That's one organization. You can do a lot of different things. Now let's move into an organization where you go into managing devices. I set up a sort of a test device here, where you can go ahead and select one device. This has just happened to be my own office up in San Ramon. This is where you can click on this device. Now, if you were to import 1, 10, or 100 devices, they would all be listed under here. This is sort of your central hub. And what you could do here is then click on those, and then you can actually assign particular sites. So say if you did an edit, you could define whatever site you want these things to go into, so that these defines can go into your default site, which is where I'm at now, or you could sign it to other sites and bind whatever particular SIP accounts that you want to be assigned to that. Conversely, you could also do an import, where you could add a device or import a whole slew of devices. As I showed you earlier on the slide, you can actually pick a template download, which allows you to put in a whole roll of SKUs, up to 10,000 different part numbers, and load all those MAC addresses so that you can upload all of these devices. And once these devices are loaded, you'll have a whole list right here, and you can group select all these different devices that you want to have selected, assign it a particular site that you want to have them downloaded to. This could be over in Texas or in Florida or in Oregon. It really depends on where you want to go, and shoot it out to that site, uploading it, whatever that specific firmware device that you wanted to do, and work it accordingly. Of course, we can go much lower level in really defining what type of configurations you want to do. You know, these common configs and back configs are actually the templates. These are the files that you can actually use to download all these different firmware files, or these template files that set up all the configurations of your phones. Then you have resource management, which is a place where you can actually store all of your different firmware. This could be the standard firmware that comes out from Fanvil, so that when Fanvil releases a new release, it will give you a warning whether or not you want to be an email or within this system itself to give you an idea on the say resources. You can have the official firmware, which Fanvil can provide here moving forward. And when you get new notifications when a new version comes out, you could be automatically notified via email or have on-site notification here. Or we could also make provisions where you have your own firmware. Like say, for example, if you happen to be an OEM to have your own specific firmware, you can have your own firmware that you load and manage here that's specific to a site, or particular the golden version that you're comfortable with, so that not every new version is something that you're comfortable with. And if it happens to be work, hey, if something works, don't mess around with it, and these are the versions that you can keep as your old firmware that you can manage here that you like deploying to separate sites. And of course, coupling all that, this is just an alarm interface, which then you can assign specific sites, particular devices, which kind of gives you the ability that when something goes wrong, either via a dashboard, you could be notified via email if you want to, or on the site that gives you an idea when something goes wrong. What if a phone was registered and got off registration? It gives you a heads up and gets you a chance to be above the wave, so that you can figure out that there's a problem before you get that call saying, hey, there's something wrong with my phone system. So again, I don't want to dig in real deep into all of these different devices, but what this is really just a quick overview of the different capabilities. So I'm going to go back to really displaying what we're going to actually do to support that. So how do you get this FDM CS account for Fanvil? You can go ahead and send your email and identify in your email the support email device, because not everybody wants their personal email to have this. Give us your support site, or whoever would be responsible for sending out or managing the FDM CS site to us, and we'll go ahead and send you a link. And what we've actually done is beyond that initial link, is to actually manage you can go ahead and look at specific sites here, and sometimes you can go and contact the distributor themselves, and they can go ahead and send you the link themselves, and we can work with you to get around that. What is it that you'll actually see? There's an actual activation account link that you'll get here within your email, and this activation account is only active for 3 days. Once you get it, you may not have immediate time to go ahead and explore it, but once you get it, there'll be 3 days in which you can just click it, and then you'll be routed to that login site, and you can define your username address as well as your password to be able to get into the account, and that'll give you the capability of being able to test drive it or to begin managing your phones as you do moving forward. So that's kind of what I have as an overview. I hope that kind of gives you the whole package that not only talks about our endpoints, the way to manage it, but also something you have to consider is if you're working with a PBX manufacturer that has their own provisioning server and that's something you're comfortable with, fine, you can stay with that server and then use this tool as a monitoring device that allows you to sort of monitoring what's going on. The thing you want to be careful of, if you begin pushing these specific configurations to the phone, it may conflict with whatever provisioning tool that your PBX provides. So when the phone reboots, it may end up going back to your original PBX, and all the settings that you put in will be defaulted back to the PBX settings. So it's something that you have to consider in the back of your head. So you pick one or the other, and each one has its pros and cons, but you'll be the decider to see which one would actually work for you best. Okay? The next slide here is going to be just our contacts and tools. This gives you our support ticket. As I mentioned earlier, there's actual local support throughout Americas. But if you want to stay connected to Fanvil, here's our social media sites that you can get access to where we have for documentation, firmware support. So with that said, we can go ahead and move to the Q&A session here to give you any questions and answers. And I guess I'll pass this back on to Julie. Moving forward.
Thank you, Tommy, so much for that wonderful presentation. And yeah, it looks like I've got a couple questions for you. Let's get started with the first one. Regarding management, how many locations can a person manage from one account?
Oh, you could put thousands if you want to. I mean, there really is no limit. If you want to go ahead and set up organizations worldwide or what have you, if you have, say, let's just say you deployed something in a dental shop, you could put a dental shop as one organization. You could set up another one as a local police station. You can deploy, and that police station set that up as a separate organization, and it can go into the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of units that you can go ahead and deploy down. And then within each organization, you could set up specific sites that give you or the provider or integrator that access that gives them the visibility to see, which devices have been deployed or which devices has lost registration. The great news behind it is that some of the challenges that people do without a management system is, oh, can you give me the MAC address of that particular device? Well, most people in attorneys' offices and dental offices don't have the ability to understand what an IP address or a MAC address is. We in the industry do that, but this sort of bridges that gap that gives you that little visibility and see, and you can actually perform a remote boot up just to see whether or not that will go ahead and solve that as well.
Thank you so much, Tommy. Next question here for you. Is there a monthly or annual charge for the remote access?
No, this is a zero cost. We believe as a differentiator to partners, we like to provide this service so that it gives us a differentiating feature that says, hey, I really like, the Fanvil endpoint solutions because it's the one solution that allows you to put our IP desk phones as well as our door access units, intercoms, and PA2s all under one roof versus having to switch from one versus the other. And that it's an option that we give to our partners. And the answer to your question is zero. We charge nothing. It's a tool that we give that allows them to put either a Phillips or a straight head screwdriver in their side pocket, and they could just go ahead forward and take care of their site. The idea here is to improve their productivity with our solutions.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Tommy. Next question here for you. Regarding training, where would you direct someone to go, perhaps your website, if anyone's looking for some detailed training on your products.
It's funny you mentioned that. It just so happens that this week, as well as 2 weeks ago, I'm actually in the middle of doing a how-to series. So 2 weeks ago, I did a how-to series webinar that will be available under the Fanvil library of videos. You can go to our site. It's as well a YouTube video, which will combine actually 4 series on doing the how-to. We have the overview, which kind of gives you everything that I just went over. But then we divided the category into 4 separate sessions. The first session was to really say, how do I organize my organization? How do I create those sub-organizations as well as those sites moving down? And they can get basically a half-hour session focusing on those sites. In fact, this week or this morning, I'm actually doing a how-to series on number 2, which gives you an idea on how to manage these devices. How do you import them, export them, uploading, these config files onto it. And then following that will be series 3 and 4, which will focus on how do I set up this thing to default to my PBX account that I normally do. Or it could be accounts that you want to do. And you can go ahead and assign those accounts to these phones. And then the last but not least is, how do I go ahead and monitor? That would be how-to series 4. And that will give you an idea of how do I set up alarms, how do I develop reports, and doing all of these features to run my business. So this will happen throughout the next couple of weeks, and we'll eventually develop a library of YouTube videos that will give interested partners that particular segment that they want to go ahead and focus on. And if they have problems there, give us a call at support@fanvil.com, and we'll be more than happy to walk through whatever particular items that they have in going through that.
Thank you so much for that, Tommy. Next question here is kind of similar. You may have already answered this, but someone is asking about a recap, the best time to reach out to Fanvil for any type of support and or how to access the Fanvil forum.
Oh, well, I mean, there is an established forum that's actually run overseas in China, but you also have local support here. You could reach out to me as sort of a first step. My email address is Tommy, TOMMY.LEE @fanvil.com. There's also an SE available if it gets really technical, and he could be reached straight via Skype. He actually speaks English, Spanish, as well as Portuguese. So it's really great in being able to handle a lot of multi-language requirements and be able to give you that technical support throughout all of North, Central, and South America if need be. And we could help you walk through whatever challenge that you might end up facing. So what time is working? Like any time right now would be fine because I'm available. And if I can't answer it, then it might have to default to you working directly with Hector, who is our SE. And if that doesn't work, you could always put in a question under the support key, or put in a support ticket that I just illustrated before, and those are all accessible via our website where you could put in a support ticket, give us a call. So it's really 24/7, to be honest with you.
Excellent. That's so good to know because that's a really popular question.
Yep.
Next question here for you. You talked about the SIP kit. Is it sold as a set?
Yes, it is. You can go ahead. It gives you basically one button, one camera, one speaker. It really gives you sort of a one deployment. So if you were to deploy a PA2, you say, gosh, I need one button to do this. Of course, once you take a look at these buttons aren't proprietary to Fanvil. You can go into almost any electronics store and see any specific button, but we kind of put this sort of a kit together that kind of gets the person off their ground and says, oh, if I only had a speaker or a microphone, they could use these little pieces of this kit to get them off the ground. Then they can go ahead and pick a third-party switch or a mic or a phone that matches their specific requirements moving forward. So it's really what we provide as a convenience to our partners, so that it gives them, they don't know where to buy it or how it connects to it, and we try to minimize those steps as much as possible for them. So we provide a kit, and you can buy one, and then after you get that one, you could buy more if you want to, if it meets your needs. But if you need multiple buttons, then you can go ahead to any third party. I wouldn't suggest you getting a bunch of kits, because if all you need are more buttons, then you can go to a third party and get a similar button or a duplicate on your own, and therefore you're off and running doing your own projects.
Excellent. Thank you, Tommy, for that. Last question. I believe your products are manufactured in China. Can you confirm that for us?
That is correct. Nearly all of our products are manufactured in China. In fact, probably 99% of all IP desk products are manufactured in China. It's not only us. We do have another factory in Taiwan, actually, which we don't know. I don't know what SKUs are run there, but I would say the bulk of our manufacturing is done in China. But we also do have a separate manufacturing facility that's in Taiwan as well. That's run separately. But yeah, everything is in essence across the pond in doing that.
Tommy, thank you so much for answering all those questions for us today. And thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar. And if anyone has any further questions, of course, please feel free to contact your sales rep or email us at sales@microcomtech.com. And if you wish to view any of the products mentioned or shown here today, please visit us at www.microcom.us. And remember, this webinar presentation has been recorded and will be uploaded to our Microcom YouTube channel so you can view it again. Tommy, thank you for your presentation once again. Appreciate your time and all your valuable information for us. Everybody, have a fantastic day. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, everybody, for your time as well. Stay healthy.